Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB game scheduled for Friday, June 16th, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Friday in Major League Baseball. First up, it's the Baltimore Orioles taking on the Chicago Cubs. We're going to see Cole Irvin and Kyle Hendricks as the projected starters. Tough spot for the Orioles to be in as they have to go from Baltimore to Chicago after that rivalry series with the Blue Jays, while the Cubs, they get to stay at home after their series against the Pirates. And, Cole Irvin's not my favorite starter to back, even though he pitched well in his last game. You got to look at the team that he faced, the Kansas City Royals. We know one of the worst teams in baseball this season, and a team that's really struggled against lefties in the last 30 days. So I don't know if I can put too much into that start. And also, you look at his ground ball to fly ball ratio in that game, 6 to 11. Only 11 fly balls allowed. Irvin, to me, is a pitch-to-contact guy that really has to have good ground ball stuff to be successful. And if he's giving up that kind of ratio, I think going forward, he is going to struggle. At Wrigley Field here on the road, I don't really like his chances. So give me Kyle Hendricks and the Cubs. We know Kyle Hendricks pitched really well in his last start, almost made history as he had a no-hitter deep into that ball game. I'm going to take the Chicago Cubs on the money line at Wrigley Field. Next up, we see the Miami Marlins taking on the Washington Nationals. Sandy Alcantara and Trevor Williams are your projected starters. Sandy Alcantara's last start could have been one of his best starts of the season. As we know, overall, 2023 has been a pretty much disappointing year for Sandy Alcantara and the Marlins. They expected big things from him after he won the Cy Young last year. And, the rest of the rotation, this young Marlins rotation, has done a pretty good job. And the Marlins have a winning record so far. But Sandy, last start, 7 innings, 1 run against the Chicago White Sox. That makes it now back-to-back starts of 7+ innings for Alcantara. 2 wins for the Marlins in those games. They are 3-1 on the money line in Alcantara's last 4 starts. And, Trevor Williams on the other side is a pitcher that the Marlins were able to get to for a home run and 3 earned runs not too long ago in a 5-3 Marlins win back on May 18th. It was a start where, Williams had 5 strikeouts through 6 innings. He was decent in that game. He gave him a quality start, but it just wasn't enough for the Nationals to win the game in the end. And overall, I don't think Williams is going to do enough here to win this game for his team. I think Sandy Alcantara gives the Marlins 6-7, good innings. The good thing about Sandy is he's pretty efficient, so he can usually go deeper in ball games. I think if this is a close game late, I got to give the edge to the Marlins bullpen. It's been one of the better bullpens in baseball in the last month or so, while the Nationals one of the worst bullpens. So give me the Miami Marlins here on the road on the money line. Next up, we see the New York Yankees taking on the Boston Red Sox. Domingo Germán and Tanner Houck are your starters. I do think this could be a tough series for the Yankees, still without Aaron Judge in the lineup. The Yankees have played in a lot of emotionally draining games lately against some big rivals. We know the Red Sox series last week had some really exciting games. We saw 3-2, 3-1, and 3-2 final scores. An extra innings game thrown in there as well. And then we saw against the New York Mets in the Subway Series a really exciting Game 1 and an even more exciting Game 2 that led to a walk-off win for the New York Mets in extra innings. Without Aaron Judge, this lineup is not as good. It's pretty, simply put. Aaron Judge, the MVP from last season, off to a great start this year. But even though, Domingo Germán pitched well in that start against the Red Sox last week, so did Tanner Houck. Both of these guys, quality starts with a good amount of strikeouts. Both of them gave up a home run at least in those 2 games. I think we're going to see a pretty low-scoring game early on, but I do think it's really tough to beat the Red Sox at home in this big rivalry series. I think the Yankees have some trouble in this game and potentially the series as well overall. I'm going to take the Boston Red Sox on the money line. Next up, we see the St. Louis Cardinals taking on the New York Mets. Miles Mikolas and Tyler McGill are your starters. I do think Mikolas is the better option in this game. Tyler McGill has got a 5.14 ERA this season, but an even steeper 5.85 expected ERA. So one could suggest and argue that he actually has more room to regress as the season continues. The Cardinals have a pretty solid lineup against right-handed pitchers this season and in the last 30 days. And Mikolas, he's a pitch-to-contact guy. The Mets already do a good job at limiting strikeouts, so I could see him scoring a few runs on Mikolas, but McGill just has not been good enough as of late for me to want to back him in this spot, even with the Mets being at home, where they've played much better at Citi Field than they have been on the road. But McGill's last start against the Pirates on the road, 3 2/3 innings, 8 base hits, 9 total runs, 7 of those were earned. Only 1 strikeout in that game. His control's been off. His strikeout numbers have just been very inconsistent. I can't back him here. Give me the St. Louis Cardinals on the money line. Next up, we see the Atlanta Braves hosting the Colorado Rockies. Jared Schuster and Dinelson Lamet on the mound in this one. Now, the Colorado Rockies have struggled against left-handed pitchers this season and in the last 30 days, where they're ranked 26th in baseball in isolated power, 29th in team OPS, and they own a 30.3% strikeout rate. So, Jared Schuster may not be my favorite starting pitcher to back. He's got an ERA above 5 so far this year, but Nelson Lamet's not been great himself this season, and the Rockies' struggles against lefties just cannot be ignored. Lamet's still got a 10.38 ERA, even though his last start wasn't the worst against the Padres. 5 innings, 2 runs. Still gave up a home run in that game, had 3 walks to go with it. I got to back the Atlanta Braves here. I trust their offense and bullpen a lot more in this spot. So give me the Atlanta Braves laying those 1.5 runs on the run line. Next up, it's the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the Texas Rangers. Kevin Gausman and Martin Perez are your starters. Should be a pretty fun series between two really solid teams in the American League. And Kevin Gausman overall this year not as good on the road as he has been at Rogers Center. He's also not in the best of form going into the start. His last game against the Twins, 4 2/3 innings, 7 base hits, 6 earned runs, a homer, and 4 walks, which is pretty concerning because Gausman, last year and even to start this season, the walks per 9, the home runs per 9, and the strikeouts per 9 were always really solid. But in 2 of his last 4 starts, we've seen 4 or more walks in those games. So his control's been a little bit shaky as of late. And I do think the Rangers, one of the better lineups in baseball against right-handed pitchers this season, they should be able to get to it for a few runs early. Now, Martin Perez on the other side is not in the best of form himself. His last start, 3 1/3 innings, 10 base hits, 7 earned runs against the Tampa Bay Rays. And although the Blue Jays, are not the Tampa Bay Rays when it comes to their efficiency against left-handed pitchers this season, I still think that Perez could be in trouble in this spot now. His season ERA is at 4.67. I think we see a high-scoring game here, a pretty competitive one, and a competitive series offensively. So give me the over here in Blue Jays Rangers. Next up, we see the Los Angeles Angels taking on the Kansas City Royals. Patrick Sandoval and Brady Singer are your starters. I'm going to look at the first 5 innings in this game. I like the first 5 over. Brady Singer, a right-handed pitcher who has struggled overall this year, facing an Angels team that in the last 30 days, top 5 team in baseball against right-handed pitchers when you look at team OPS, WRC+, and isolated power. So I do think Singer struggles in this game, and Patrick Sandoval has also not been in great form as of late, where you look at his last 8 1/3 innings against the Mariners and the Astros, 18 base hits, 11 earned runs, and a home run in those 2 starts. Those are both Angels losses, and a 6-2 final score and a 9-6 final score. In fact, the Angels have lost each of the last 5 games that Sandoval has started, so it's really tough to back the Angels in the first 5 with him struggling the way he has. I'd rather just take the over in the first 5. I could see either of these teams getting over the first 5 themselves, but give me the Angels Royals over 5 runs in the first 5. Next up, we see the Cincinnati Reds taking on the Houston Astros. Andrew Abbott and J.P. France are your starters. Andrew Abbott's pitched well so far in his first 2 outings at the big league level, a 2-0 record with a 0.00 ERA. He's not given up an earned run yet. He's got 10 strikeouts in 11 2/3 innings, but a little bit concerning the fact that he's walked 7 batters. His control has not been the best, and this is definitely the toughest matchup, I think, for him so far against this very good Astros lineup against lefties. First 2 matchups were against the Brewers and the Cardinals. 2 teams, when you look at their numbers in the last 30 days, the Cardinals are 17th and the Brewers are 24th in WRC+. The Astros, though, are 5th best in baseball against lefties in the last 30 days in WRC+. They have a low strikeout rate, good power numbers. Their 208 isolated power is 5th best in baseball. So I think they'll be able to get to Andrew Abbott. The Reds have not been the best against right-handed pitchers. They really crush lefties, but not the best against righties. And I do think J.P. France, even though he has struggled at Minute Maid Park, will be good enough for the Astros to win this game in the end. I also think the Astros have a very clear and big advantage in the bullpen. So give me the Houston Astros on the run line. In our next game, we see the Detroit Tigers taking on the Minnesota Twins. No official starter for Detroit right now. We should see Joe Ryan going for Minnesota. Obviously, not a lot of information for the Detroit side in terms of who they're going to be starting, if they go with a bullpen game or not. But Joe Ryan's been very good this season, 7-3 record with a 2.9 ERA. Even better numbers at home this year at Target Field, 4-1 with a 2.35 ERA, 35 strikeouts in 30 2/3 innings, and only 1 home run allowed at home. The Tigers have not been great against right-handed pitchers this season, and that includes the last 30 days. So for me, right now, leaning towards the Twins on the run line. Next up, it's the Pittsburgh Pirates taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. We're going to see Rich Hill and Julio Teheran as the projected starters. Julio Teheran's off to a good start this year, a 1.48 ERA, but the xFIP is above 4. And the Brewers, offensively, I don't really love their chances in this one against a left-handed pitcher in Rich Hill, who's coming off a good start against the Chicago Cubs. The New York Mets, 7 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts, and a 14-7 Pirates win. And when you look at the Milwaukee Brewers, we talk about it all the time. This team just hasn't had a lot of luck against left-handed pitchers. They've made some improvements in their lineup in terms of the personnel that they use in the games where they have a lefty starter on the other side. But still, when you look at the Brewers' numbers, 24th in team OPS, 24th in WRC+, a little bit better in isolated power at 18th, but still a little bit below league average, a 25.3% strikeout rate. It's top 10 highest in baseball. So I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Pirates here. We're getting a really good price. Give me Pittsburgh on the money line. Next up, it's the Cleveland Guardians taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. We're going to see Tristan McKenzie and Zach Gallen. Really good pitching matchup on our hands in this one. Now, Zach Gallen's not really in the best of form as of late. It's a little bit concerning for me. One of those starts was at home, and one of those starts was on the road. One of those starts being against one of the tougher teams in baseball in the Atlanta Braves, which you could say it's understandable for Gallen to struggle in that one. But the other one was against the Detroit Tigers, which we just mentioned have not been great against right-handed pitchers this season. In those two starts combined, 11 2/3 innings. One of those games was a Diamondbacks win, but 19 base hits, 8 total runs, 7 of those were earned, 2 home runs as well. Now, the strikeout numbers were there, but 2 home runs allowed, a home run in each of those starts. Pretty concerning for a guy who was seen as the pretty heavy favorite to win the National League Cy Young a week ago. When you look at the Cleveland Guardians, this is a lineup that may not have the best numbers in terms of their OPS because of their slugging percentage, may not have the best isolated power numbers, but against right-handed pitchers, they do not strike out much. They usually have the lowest strikeout rate in baseball all season long. They put the ball in play, they play small ball, they steal bases, and I do think that they could be a problem for Zach Gallen in this one. Tristan McKenzie was not great in his last start, but he still was able to miss some bats, and so far this year he's got 15 strikeouts in 10 innings of work. The Diamondbacks against the Phillies, their pitching staff struggled quite a bit in that series. I do think Cleveland has the upper hand in this game. I'm going to take the really good price we're getting with Cleveland on the money line, getting plus money. I'm going to take a shot with them here. Next up, we see the Philadelphia Phillies taking on the Oakland Athletics. We're going to see Taijuan Walker and J.P. Sears on the mound in this one. This is a tough game for me, but I just really can't trust Taijuan Walker at this price on the road, where he has notably struggled this season. Pitching at Citizens Bank Park, he's got a 2.25 ERA, but on the road, 3-3 with a 6.75 ERA in 37 1/3 innings. Those walk numbers, they're not great. Their strikeout numbers, only 25 Ks in those 37 innings, is also not great. The opponent's batting average way up to 295 compared to 157 at home, and 7 home runs allowed on the road as well. The Oakland A's, a couple weeks ago we'd say, oh, this is the worst team in baseball by far. They played pretty good baseball as of late. They've competed with some tough teams. They played well in that Rays series, and I think they can do enough here with probably their best option in the rotation, and J.P. Sears on the mound here. He's got a 4.15 ERA, but has actually been really impressive as of late. His last 5 starts, 2 earned runs or fewer in all 5 of those games. He's missing bats. His control's been off a little bit here and there, but overall, he's been their most consistent starter in the last month plus. I think that if there was a game in this series that the A's had the best chance of winning outright, this would be the one. So give me Oakland plus the 1.5 with a sprinkle on the money line in this one. Next up, we see the Tampa Bay Rays taking on the San Diego Padres. We're going to see Shane McClanahan and Yu Darvish on the bump in this one. The Padres are crushing left-handed pitchers right now. In the month of June, they are number 3 in WRC+, number 3 in isolated power, and number 1 in baseball in team OPS, with a very low strikeout rate at 18.7% in the month of June. And Shane McClanahan's last couple of starts giving up at least 1 home run in 3 straight games. Yu Darvish has been solid at Petco Park this season. He's not been great on the road, that's for sure. But at home this season, a 2.68 ERA. When you look at Tampa Bay, this was a lineup at the beginning of the season, the best in baseball against right-handed pitchers. As of late, not so much. When you look at the numbers in the month of June so far, Tampa Bay is 16th in team OPS. They are also below average in isolated power at 19th. So I think Darvish pitches well. I think the Padres will back him up. They've just been crushing lefties. So give me San Diego on the money line. Next up is the Chicago White Sox taking on the Seattle Mariners. Michael Kopech and Brian Wu are your starters. Michael Kopech's been in much better form the last month or so than he was at the beginning of the season. His last 4 starts, he's been able to miss some bats. He had 6 strikeouts and 5 innings of shutout baseball in his last game. He had 9 Ks in the previous start against the Detroit Tigers. Even though the White Sox bats don't always back him up, I still think he'll be good enough here against Brian Wu, who's got really good strikeout stuff, but does tend to miss a lot inside the zone. We saw that in the first outing of his major league career, where he gave up 7 base hits, and a lot of those were sharp contact, extra base hits, or line drive singles. He gave up 6 earned runs in that game in his 16-6 Mariners loss. And although he pitched a lot better in his next start against the Angels, still gave up a home run and 2 earned in 4 2/3 innings. I think the White Sox do enough offensively here for Kopech to grab the W. I'm going to take Chicago here on the money line at a really good price on the road. Next up, we see the final game for Friday's card in Major League Baseball, the San Francisco Giants and the Los Angeles Dodgers. John Brebbia, the opener in this game for San Francisco, going up against no official starter for the Dodgers. Now, if you're San Francisco, this is a team that's used a lot of bullpen games as of late, and they've utilized their bullpen. I say, why not? I mean, this bullpen has been the best in baseball in the last 30 days. ERA-wise, they got a 1.52 bullpen ERA with a 2.95 Sierra. And, John Brebbia has pitched in this opener role a few times this season. He's done pretty well in those games. I think San Francisco has a really good shot at taking this first game on the road against their big rivals in the division. Los Angeles has been pretty inconsistent offensively. We'll have to see who they use, starting pitching-wise, or if they go with the bullpen game themselves. But right now, I'm leaning towards San Francisco on the money line. So give me San Francisco. And that's it. Those are the games for Friday in the MLB. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bet, you can find those at Pickdawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.